After returning to the antique shop, the group began discussing strategies. They realized that they couldn't possibly fight against the vampire army with just a few of them. Furthermore, the others had no idea about the existence of vampires, putting the group in a difficult situation. Just then, Dutch returned to the antique shop with good news. She informed everyone that there was a way to broadcast the information about the viral outbreak in the city to the world. They could use the emergency alert system to interrupt television broadcasts. The purpose of the emergency alert system was to allow the president to make announcements to the entire nation during times of war or crisis. The advantage of the emergency alert system was that it didn't require any filtering or approval. Dutch could use it to broadcast F's video on television and radio. Although they only had 30 seconds, it would be enough for them. Dutch quickly adjusted the equipment. When the countdown ended, F appeared on the television program. After a brief introduction, F began informing the national audience about the infectious disease spreading in the city. F said that this virus invades the host's body through rough corrosion, and the carrier of this parasitic worm is transmitted to the victim through the stinger. If they are infected by the virus, they will hunt down ordinary people, and their nemesis is the sun. As soon as the time was up, the television returned to normal programming. Although humans might initially be skeptical upon hearing the news, at least they would become more vigilant. Just as the group was about to celebrate, they heard a scream from upstairs. When they rushed to the scene, they discovered that Gabe had barged in. He was in the process of feeding on Martinez. Vasily charged at him, but Gabe managed to dodge. F joined the fight immediately. At that moment, more vampires rushed in. F quickly instructed everyone to take cover in the basement. Meanwhile, Eichhorst arrived at the antique shop with a few vampires. The actions of the vampire hunting team had completely enraged the master. Once everyone was hiding in the basement, Citrakian revealed that he had anticipated this day and had purposely left an escape route. This gave the group newfound hope, and they began preparing to retreat and gather their equipment. However, before leaving, they needed to deal with Nora's mother. F approached Martinez with a silver sword and asked Nora to leave first. Nora knew that being bitten by a vampire was incurable. After intense internal struggle, Nora took the silver sword and prepared to take matters into her own hands. Facing her own mother, Nora ultimately killed her. Citrakian then led Nora away from the scene. By the time Eichhorst entered the basement, the vampire hunting team had already left. On the other side, in order to fight against the vampires, Gus found the arms dealer Cream. Faced with Gus's threat, Cream had no choice but to take him to the docks.
Got an AR-15, MP5, and a couple of pistols.
Just as Gus was about to leave, they suddenly heard a car approaching. Cream claimed it was his client and that it would only take 2 minutes to deal with them. Soon a man came in. He put the bag on the table, told him that the goods must be delivered on time tomorrow, and then left. Gus asked Cream to get the bag, and it turned out that there was $100,000 in it. Cream advised Gus to stop meddling in other people's business and leave as soon as he got the gun. But Gus was curious about what was in the box, and it was worth $100,000. Cream had no choice but to take him to check. When they opened the cargo box, all of them were vampires. There were so many vampires that Gus and Cream had to fight their way out while retreating. Soon, they ran out of bullets. Just then, a group of armed individuals dressed in black appeared. They began hunting down the vampires. Quinlan appeared, and their mission this time was not only to eliminate the vampires but also to take Gus with them. Palmer was on the brink of death when suddenly a mysterious figure flashed by. He looked towards the door, but no one entered. When he turned his head, he found that the blood ancestor had come to his bedside. Palmer was very excited after seeing the blood ancestor. He asked the blood ancestor to save him. After hearing this, the blood ancestor also abided by the agreement. He grabbed Palmer's face, and then slowly stretched out his hand.
Thank you.
Fitzwilliam entered the office, intending to change Palmer's medicine, but Palmer was nowhere to be found on the sickbed. Instead, Fitzwilliam saw Palmer standing outside in the rain. At this moment, Palmer has been completely transformed, and all the diseases on his body have disappeared. On the other side, Gus was taken underground by Vaughn. Vaughn took off his hat, and Gus realized that he wasn't human. Curious, Gus asked him what he wanted. Instead of answering, Vaughn untied Gus first. Gus's sneak attack failed. Vaughn was not angry, but took Gus to a place. On the other side, Palmer, who had regained his new life, arrived at Citrakian's antique shop. He ordered his men to take everything away. Then Eichhorst came over, and Palmer happily shared with him the joy of rebirth and asked when he could have a stinger. Eichhorst smiled and explained that Palmer was not yet a vampire. The master had only fed him blood, not the worms. Palmer questioned why so many people in the city had been turned into vampires, while he hadn't. Upon seeing this, Eichhorst quickly stepped forward to comfort him. He said that the blood ancestor chose Palmer, so as long as he was loyal enough, he would be recognized by the blood ancestor one day. On the other hand, F and the others escaped from the antique shop and arrived at Vasily's home. They found Gabe's bar on the passenger manifest of the plane. They believed that it could be a gathering place for vampires, so F and Vasily decided to investigate. They quickly arrived at the destination, only to find the front gate tightly closed. However, with Vasily's familiarity with the area, he soon found the back door of the bar. They quietly made their way to the basement, but found no signs of vampires. Then, Vasily discovered a hidden room behind a shelf. They entered the room cautiously. After passing through the passage, they found the coffin of the blood ancestor, and judged that the blood ancestor must be nearby. They found a group of resting vampires, who were the master's bodyguards. They quickly left the area. Before leaving, Vasily lifted the manhole cover. He wanted to trap the vampires in that area using sunlight. On the other side, Palmer was saddened by not becoming a vampire. But now, there was a new problem. Maggie from the CDC wanted to quarantine the entire city to prevent the virus from spreading. It seemed that F's news had an impact. Locking down the city will control the speed of infection, so Palmer must talk to Maggie in person. Palmer instructed Fitzwilliam to prepare the car, but Fitzwilliam defied Palmer's orders. In the end, Fitzwilliam resigned and left. Left with no choice, Palmer took Eichhorst to the CDC. Although Maggie and Palmer had been working together, she only realized the severity of the situation after seeing F's news. Despite Palmer's repeated pleas, Maggie insisted on quarantining the city. Unable to persuade her, Palmer forcefully threw her downstairs. Barnes was shocked by the sight before him. He knew that Palmer had immense power and had no choice but to submit. The three vampires before them were the progenitors of the vampires. Gus asked Vaughn if they were still alive. Vaughn explained that they were in a state of meditation. The words of the patriarchs will be conveyed by him. Soon, Vaughn revealed the purpose of bringing Gus here. The vampires had been wreaking havoc on human society, breaking the truce agreement, so they need a brave human warrior. Due to Gus's exceptional abilities, the three elders unanimously voted for Gus to participate in the vampire power struggle. On the other side, F returned home and found Zach. Knowing that it wasn't safe for him to be alone, he decided to take Zach with him to the vampire lair. Additionally, he gave Zach a silver sword to protect himself. With everything prepared, they once again arrived at the vampire lair. Vasily found that the manhole cover he lifted worked, and a group of vampires were blocked by the sun. Then, Vasily instructed everyone to retreat for the time being.
Fire in the hole, vermin!
After a loud explosion, the tunnel fell silent. Following that, the group continued towards the master's lair. Upon reaching the bar, they encountered a large gathering of vampires. Citrakian and the others were prepared for a fierce battle, using various silver weapons to dominate the fight. The ordinary vampires were no match for them. Citrakian and F then proceeded to the second floor to search for the master. Vasily and the remaining three stayed behind to deal with the vampires. Just then Gabe and Eichhorst joined the battle, and everyone fell into passivity again. At this time Citrakian came upstairs, and the blood ancestor came to him again. F knew that Citrakian was no match for him, so he directly broke the window above his head, and the sunlight instantly burned the blood ancestor. Then F broke other glasses one after another, trying to let all the sunlight in. The blood ancestor was forced into a corner by sunshine at this time. When F took the knife and prepared to fight him to the death, the blood ancestor chose to jump out of the window. The sunlight immediately engulfed him. Meanwhile, Eichhorst prepared to kill Vasily. Suddenly, he felt that the blood ancestor was threatened by his life, so Eichhorst quickly took the vampires to support him. At this time, the blood ancestor who was exposed to the sun was in great pain, and Citrakian was ready to take his life when he saw this. But the next second, the blood ancestor actually stood up in the sun, roared and fled from here. Then Vasily and others came upstairs and were shocked to learn that the blood ancestor had escaped. This reduced everyone's morale to the extreme. On their way back, Zach suddenly had an asthma attack. Unable to do anything, F had to take Zach back home to get his medication. Finally, F found it, and when Zach came out, he saw Zach holding Kelly's photo album. It turned out that Zach had been pretending to have asthma, which infuriated F. Knowing that Kelly, now a vampire, would surely be searching for Zach everywhere, a dark figure suddenly flashed by the window. F sensed trouble and slowly picked up his handgun. As F and Zach reached the back door, they noticed a figure standing in the backyard. Upon closer inspection, it was Kelly. Zach wanted to rush over to her. Luckily, F grabbed Zach in time and shot Kelly in the shoulder. Kelly silently left, and the vampire hunting team arrived shortly after hearing the gunshot. After learning that Kelly appeared, Citrakian said that this was a method used by the blood ancestor. He manipulated human emotions to set traps, and even in failure, he would not give up. Soon, the group was driving on the highway. Looking at the devastated city, they didn't know who would ultimately emerge victorious. Although everyone failed in this mission, the blood ancestor also suffered heavy losses. He used his last strength to summon Eichhorst and told him two things. Firstly, he needed Eichhorst to find him a new body, as his current one had been burned by sunlight and was beyond repair. Secondly, he ordered Eichhorst to gather an army of vampires for a furious retaliation against the vampire hunting team. Citrakian's lifelong pursuit of the blood ancestor was due to the ongoing Holocaust of the Jews in Germany during World War II. As a Jewish person himself, Citrakian couldn't escape the capture. He and his mother were taken to a concentration camp, where Eichhorst was their commanding officer. Due to Citrakian's carpentry skills, he was spared, but his mother wasn't as fortunate. One night, while Citrakian was sleeping, he noticed a dark figure flash by. A creature stopped at the head of a man's bed, then began to thin his blood and twisted the man's head off on the spot. The sight horrified Citrakian. The next day he talked to his companions about it, but they scoffed. And then Eichhorst came along. He was so pleased with Citrakian's work that Eichhorst took him to his office. He took out a drawing and asked Citrakian Lahan to make him something. While Eichhorst was out, he took a knife and hid it. After several days and nights of work, Citrakian made the object, and it was the coffin for the blood ancestor. He just didn't know it at the time. After completing his mission, Citrakian went back to the camp. At night he saw the monster again. Citrakian took out his dagger and tried to stop the monster, but the monster found him in the middle of it, and Citrakian was instantly captured by the monster. Just when he thought he was going to die, the monster let him go. It may have been Citrakian who built the coffin for him, but he still had his hands broken by the monster. The next day, Eichhorst gathered all the Jews outside. He was going to kill them all. Just as the execution was about to take place, a shot rang out in the distance, and Citrakian Rahan escaped from the camp. On the other side, Eichhorst's army was defeated, and he fled into the secret base he had previously built. Blood Ancestor also found him at this time, because he was helped by Eichhorst. The Blood Ancestor decided to give him the power of a vampire. 5 years later, Citrakian married his lifelong love and had a child, but he never gave up hunting down the Blood Ancestor, and his mother's revenge has yet to be avenged. Soon, Citrakian discovered clues in a deep well. As he passed through a narrow passage, the sky grew dark. The Blood Ancestor, who was sleeping in the darkness, woke up. Only then did Citrakian realize that he had been trapped. When he came to the mouth of the well, he found that the climbing rope had long disappeared. He roared and asked Eichhorst to have a life and death duel with him, but to no avail. He attempted to climb out but failed each time. After countless attempts, he finally managed to escape. When he emerged, he found that his horse had been slain. Hurrying home, Citrakian was met with his wife and daughter, now turned into vampires. In his sorrow, Citrakian beheaded them both. Then took his wife's heart and placed it in a jar. He swore to make the vampires pay. And so, 50 years later, the time for his revenge had come. Citrakian, along with F and others, formed a vampire hunting team to fight against the bloodthirsty creatures.